what we need to do in today's real world of the internet and virtual meetings and Zoom meetings and just not being in the same place at the same time in the same room with somebody, and also having Alexa on or Google Home on. And what do we do with all of that stuff? And with regards to privilege. This is Girija Patel, your legal BFF, and I am here to talk all things about the law and business. So I love diving in and talking about business and legal strategies alongside sharing some tips and, talking about some hot topics here and there as well. Today's episode is actually going to be talking about privilege. There is a lot of buzz around the word privilege. Privilege can exist in communications, especially in professions such as a health profession, or whether you're in accounting, or as a lawyer, there is privilege between clients and attorneys as well. And so today's episode, we'll be focusing a little bit about privilege, talking about why we even have it, and what we need to do in today's real world of the internet and virtual meetings and Zoom meetings and just not being in the same place at the same time in the same room with somebody, and also having Alexa on or Google Home on. And what do we do with all of that stuff? And with regards to privilege. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So what's privilege? Privilege is essentially a privilege in with regards to professions is communication that is going to be kept confidential between the client and a professional in their profession. So a lot of times privilege does not exist for every single profession out there. But privilege does exist in law for certain professions. So such as law, as a lawyer and a client, you have legal privilege, you have client attorney privilege. You also have privilege with regards to your doctors or other health professions out there, whether it's a therapist, psychologist, or just your regular MD who is just, general practitioner, anything. So you have privilege there too. And there's a lot of law surrounding that, especially for privacy purposes, and also to make sure that your personal health information is not being disclosed to the wrong people or just being disclosed in general without your permission as a patient. Other areas that privileges can exist in communication is with accountants, or in other countries, there might be other privileges that exist that may not exist within the United States as well. So whether you're listening to this in the United States or whether you are somewhere else in this world, you have certain privilege rights that do exist within the law. So it's really important to see if, one, it applies to you and to your profession, and two, are you handling it the correct way? Within the United States also, we have different privilege requirements within each state with legal attorney-client privileges. So again, it can vary state to state. It can vary country to country as well. But know this, that in general, attorney-client privilege or health professional patient privilege or any other type of privilege that exists there is to protect communication that is happening between your client, your patient, and the professional that is there. And the reason for that is, one, to have open, candid conversations without fear, without judgment, so the other person can prescribe or help you in the best way possible. Now, of course, there's caveats and exceptions to all privileges, and that could vary, again, state to state, and it can also vary country to country. But in general, if there's a third person sitting in the room, that privilege has been broken. That privilege does not exist anymore. And so how do we protect ourselves in today's day and age? Not only just as the professionals providing the services, but also as clients, as you're listening. What can you do in order to protect that privilege and to make sure that you are not essentially losing it because of a small mistake? Now, a lot of times there's also, you have privilege by law because of the nature of the profession and the nature of the relationship between you and your client or your customer or your patient. But there's also sometimes we have confidentiality, right? In contracts, you're contracting to be confidential and to share or not share certain information. And so we need to make sure that we are being protective of that as well. And again, in today's digital era, where we are far closer than we've ever been before that protection can easily be lost without us even knowing. And that is the problem. So just the small things, especially in the legal world, we're constantly talking about security breaches. We're constantly talking about privacy breaches. And a lot of times that just happens by the mere fact of having Alexa on through Amazon. She can hear everything, right? And so that is the thing. So a lot of lawyers actually, we turn off all of that stuff when we're having client conferences or client conversations at home. And post-COVID era, there's so much more at-home meetings happening virtually with your clients. And so you want to make sure that there's really nobody else around you listening to these conversations, that you are in a secure spot away from others. There's no digital or CCTV or anything else that's capturing that moment. Because at the end of the day, all of those things can potentially break that privilege or undo that privilege that you might have. So number one thing that you really want to look for is how secure is the space that you are having those meetings in, whether it's a virtual or in-person at-home meetings. How secure is that space? How private is that space? How often can people just come in and out, or can somebody listen in to your conversation either through video or through something like a Google Home or Amazon Alexa, something like that. So scan that, scan your space, scan it and see what is working for you and what is not. And I know it's an extra step to go in and undo Alexa or undo those plugs, but sometimes it's absolutely required and needed, and you need to do it. And so that extra step is there, but it's also protecting so much more out there and potential risk as well for lawsuits against you with regards to breach of privacy or breach of privilege that you might have caused. And so scan your space. Is it secure? Is it closed doors? Are other people listening in, or can they listen in and have those conversations and just kind of scan it and see what works and what doesn't work? Number two, the thing that we really need to focus on is this something actually that just really came into my attention recently is when I was working with a client is also, what are your clients doing? What is the person on the other side of your virtual meeting on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever? What are they doing? What is their space looking like? I feel like we need to have that notice that we're giving to our client. Now, whatever capacity or relationship you might have with them, but if there is a certain type of privilege that's required in this communication, or there is some confidentiality type of contract that you have written and they have signed to and you have agreed to on, then you need to ensure that they are also complying with it. Because again, you're the professional and there's a higher standard for you than with regards to your client at the end of the day. And so you need to inform your client or your patient or anybody else on the other side that, hey, listen, this conversation that we are having is confidential. It is privileged. And I need to make sure that there's nobody else around you listening in, that you are in a place that is secure, you're in a place that is private, and that nobody else can really listen into you. And if they are permitting people to say, and then you want them to kind of sign a little waiver saying that they're permitting someone to sit in and allow to be a part of this conversation. And you also need to let them know that having that person there may waive your privilege. That stuff may seem burdensome, and I get it. I totally get it. But at the end of the day, that burdensome actions that we might be taking that seem frivolous at the moment might actually be something that really protects you in the future and is a total CYA for you as a professional, and is really important for us to have those conversations. I know for a fact that I may not have been notifying all my clients. And now I'm going to be doing that moving forward because sometimes we just don't think about it because it just seems like, oh, this is just another conversation we're having online. And, of course they know that they need to be alone. Of course they know that this information is pretty, proprietary or delicate, but still things happen, stuff falls through the cracks. And we just need to make sure that we are informing our clients, we're informing the people that we are working with that this is what you need to do in order to ensure that our privilege is protected and we are not breaching anything. So again, have that conversation with the person sitting on the other side of the Zoom call or the other side of this computer, the screen. Now, whether it's a client or not, I would even suggest that if you are having meetings and those meetings are required to be confidential, then you make sure that everybody in that room is there needs to be there, and there's nobody extra or no other extra ears that could hear what's happening in the room. And these are practices that we don't really talk about, but really we need to start making them happen. And so again, kind of just go through, scan the room, scan your space, make sure your space is not getting breached unintentionally by something. Again, inform the other person on the other side of the screen that, hey, listen, this is what's going on. I need you to make sure that your space is also free of breach, or that you understand that if this and this and this are here, then it could lead to, a breach of confidentiality, or, other information, or a breach of your privilege as well. And so those are two big things that we could do. Again, a few extra steps that are required, but steps that will absolutely protect you in the future. Now, a third thing that I'm going to talk about is, of course, waivers or notices that we need to put into our contracts as well. Because when we put them into the contract, it's kind of like, hey, you're contractually saying that you're going to do it. Now, whether I tell you or not every single time, I've given you notice in this contract also, and you've said, yes, you're going to do it. And it can be a small little clause that's just saying, hey, listen, we have attorney-client privilege. I'm going to be doing what I can do to ensure attorney-client privilege, but I need you to do your part and make sure there's attorney-client privilege, at least for attorneys, right? Now with doctors, lawyers, it's telehealth also, you're having conversations with your accountants via Zoom. So we just need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves, and we're letting them know also that there's an expectation that they're doing whatever they can do on their end to ensure privacy, to ensure that there's no breach of privilege or confidentiality as well. And, perhaps even if there is an unintentional breach, then we're not going to hold ourselves accountable for it. Because again, with the world that we're in right now, we don't even think about all the ways we could be breaching that, with just even at-home cameras that we have through Nest or through Ring or anything, right? Like, we don't realize how much we are allowing outsiders to view into our space. We believe it to be safe, but at the end of the day, all of this stuff is collected and stored on a cloud. That cloud can be breached by hackers. That cloud can be breached by anybody. And so when that happens, all the communication that could be on that cloud, whether it is video or whether it is any other type of storage system that you might be using on your computer, all that stuff can be breached. And so we really need to be thoughtful about how we're protecting ourselves. Now, those are communications. Now, move forward to actual online storage clouds that we have and the sources that we use. We really need to make sure that we're doing whatever we can with regard to protection. I know a lot of companies out there, they actually require their employees not to store anything on cloud. They provide their employees hardware to store at-home clouds or at-home storage where they can only they have access to it, and no other third party can actually just hack into this cloud that's out there. And so there's a lot of things and products out there. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but if it is part of your profession, it's something that it might be a good investment for you. And it might be something that you need to think about, because even documents are supposed to be protected and privileged. It's not just communication that is verbal, but it's also communication that is written, or emails also. Now I'm sure you've seen a lot of emails that come through either through CPAs or accountants or lawyers or other type of professionals, where they say on the bottom that this is only meant for XYZ. If it's not meant for you, delete and let us know. So that way, things happen in today's world. I mean, technology, there's certain things you can control, and there's certain things that just become completely out of control. And you need to do whatever you can do on your end to make sure that you're taking all the steps to protect your client, to protect that communication, especially if it's required under law or you have contracted into it. And, follow those steps and do the due diligence that you can do in order to ensure that protection. And so again, remember, scan your space, figure it out, do those extra steps to make sure that you're not breaching that privacy or that privilege or the confidentiality in any way that could be even unintentional. and then have that communication with your client, put it in a contract, have those conversations with them. And then, of course, even in the written digital aspects, how are you protecting yourself? Scan that space as well. Are you using a high security space online, or are you just using something that can be easily breached? Are you using two-factor authentications? Do whatever you can do on your end to provide the maximum amount of protection for that privilege or for the confidentiality out there.